people don't come here to listen to us talk about our personal lives. People come here, people sometimes come here to listen to us talk about politics. And there have been, once again, a lot of crazy bullshit going on. And I want to stress to people before we get into today's topics, this is not the same crazy bullshit you saw 4 years ago. Or 6 years ago, whatever. We remember that period of also being like, holy shit, this is crazy. What's going on? But this stuff is way more serious shit. And we're going to be talking about some of the most serious shit today, starting with the war in Europe over in Ukraine. So when Trump was elected president, one of the things that we said on the show is that Ukraine is fucked, that they are going to be in for a very bad time because Putin and Trump are buddies. And it has been very apparent for a while that Trump would side with Putin. And this week he has. He came out, he met with Putin. What was it, in Saudi Arabia they met all together without inviting Zelenskyy. And Trump called Zelenskyy dictator because he hasn't had elections, which is literally, part of the constitution of Ukraine, to not have elections when you're under martial law. And he also accused Zelenskyy of starting the war, which I find to be very funny because I really tried to find what they're referring to as Zelenskyy starting the war. And I still can't find it. I have not found the actual explanation for what Trump thinks Zelenskyy did to start the war.
He didn't give him all of that information on the Biden family. That's what.
Exactly. And it's really funny. And there's actually, when I planned, talking about this yesterday, there's new information that's come in today that has made me at least change my perspective on what might end up happening here. But before we get to today's news, when you guys heard, all this news come out about Trump basically betraying Ukraine and Zelenskyy and NATO and Europe in order to side with Russia in a completely unprecedented move for the United States of America. Wiseacre, we'll go to you first. What was your first reaction to this? Was it, oh, I knew this was coming, so I'm not that worried about it, it still sucks? Or was it, because I knew it was coming and it still felt devastating?
Yeah, it was obvious what's going to happen, and it sucks that it's happening, and it's happening fast. What I didn't expect was them negotiating without Ukraine involved at all. That was kind of surprising. I didn't expect that. I thought maybe they would kind of have some sort of sham meeting, but no, they're completely closed out of it, which again, that's what Putin would want. And Trump's just like, okay, sir, yes, sir. And with the election thing, they're pushing for election for an obvious reason. It's so that Putin can try to rig it and put in a guy that will be favored to him, like was in power before, so that they'll just capitulate to whatever Putin wants.
TJ, what are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought upon hearing this, when Trump said that Zelenskyy started the war in Ukraine, I had a similar reaction to you, John, because with this entire the Ukraine situation, I hate to say it, it's complex. It is. It's actually, there's a whole lot going on to it. And so I really try to see what people are saying and what they mean, what the implications might be. And it's still kind of baffling to me that anyone is like, yeah, I want Russia to win. I still can't grasp why anyone thinks that's in our best interest. And when I heard that, I said, okay, well, what could that possibly mean? I got nothing for you. But it did remind me of Donald Trump when he was running for president the first time. Do you guys remember when he said this? Hold on, let me pull it up here if I got it. Oh, shit. This is great television here, TJ. That happens. But
damn, our damn admin here at the Left Wing failed us.
I know.
Again.
If only we had that taken care of. But this clip is with our current president, Donald J. Trump, and he's talking about. Well, actually, you know what? Here, I'll just play it. And you guys remember when he said this right here?
ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS. Okay? He's the founder. He founded ISIS. And I would say the co-founder would be crooked Hillary Clinton.
First, I want to point out he said it 4 times that Barack Obama is the founder of ISIS. And just in case you didn't hear it the first time, he founded ISIS. He's the founder. He's the founder. And I remember him doing an interview, which I was actually looking for the clip where he was being interviewed on the news after that. It's like, what do you mean Barack Obama is the founder of ISIS? His response was, he is the founder of ISIS. And it's like, God, and you know what? This tactic that he has of just repeating himself when people ask for clarification, I'm going to start using this. Apparently it works. You know, why not go for it? And the thing with Russia and Ukraine, I don't know what you're going to say here, John, but like from my point of view on this is that the United States, for those who don't know, the United States is involved in, sending weapons and everything to Ukraine to protect themselves from Russia, because we made a deal with Ukrainians back in the 90s. After the Soviet Union fell, the Ukrainians had a bunch of nuclear weapons. Now, nuclear weapons aren't something you can just store in a fridge somewhere. Like, you actually need nuclear trained scientists to, watch after these things, make sure they don't destabilize and that they're not dangerous to people around them. Ukraine didn't have them. And so the United States says, okay, well, you got these dangerous weapons here. We would like to take them to our arsenal. And Ukraine said, okay, we'll give you those weapons in exchange for a promise that you'll protect us if the Russians ever try to encroach. So the United States, okay, and so we're making good on that deal from 30 years ago. Now, I do understand that this is not an indefinite commitment to Ukraine. If it costs, too much money, or if it costs us, our lives and stuff, there's a limit. So I'm not completely kicking back against people who say, well, we can't do this forever. But I do see why the Russians invaded too, because they don't like the border, encroachment on there. But here's the question I have. When we say, well, we can only send weapons or money to Ukraine to protect them from Russia, we can't send soldiers or military or like our actual people, because that will start World War III. Why? I really don't know an answer to that, because I don't see the difference. Like, if I'm Russia and I'm fighting Ukraine, knowing that the weapons came from the United States, that's the same thing to me, that this has been a proxy war and they just don't want to admit it, which makes a lot of sense since they're doing the negotiations without Ukraine anyway, that this has always been a United States-Russia proxy war. And if Trump's on Russia's side, yeah, he's going to say, okay, well, the war's over now. Like, my proxy thing is over. Well, what do you think, John?
So a couple things here. One, everything that you just said is true. Like this is one of the most clear-cut examples of, hey, we clearly owed these people. Russia invaded them, and we have some obligation to defend them. And yes, you can make reasonable arguments as to how far that goes, but what Trump is doing here is just trying to rewrite that history. And that's one of the things that really upset me about that we'll say reasonable Trump supporters, where it's like, yeah, they'll say, yeah, Biden lies about a bunch of stuff. Democrats manipulate the American people all the time. And I'm like, yeah, I totally agree with you. But like, at least they act like there's a pretense that they have to convince of things using some sort of evidence or facts or arguments. They don't just say Obama founded ISIS. Oh, how do you know that? Because he founded ISIS. Or Ukraine started the war. How did they start the war? Ukraine started the war. Like, they're not even pretending to give a reasonable argument. So like, yeah, that's just that right there. But when you talk about, hey, what's the difference? To me, I think it's an important difference. And yeah, you can like talk about, does it really matter? Everyone knows we're fighting this proxy war. And it's like, yeah, but like, think about like a conflict you have in your family, where this guy, your uncle doesn't like your niece, or, whatever it's going on. And you can say snide remarks across the dinner table. You can do these certain things. But if you escalate it into bringing up how your uncle got divorced 10 years ago, that's a major, like, that's going to shut down Thanksgiving. That's going to cause such big fights that like no one ever brings that up. I'm completely making up examples here. My family conflicts are very different than that. But the point I'm making here is there is a line that when things can be so destructive that it would just completely change the dynamics of everyday life, there is very clear lines of separation that you do not cross unless you are willing to fundamentally change the dynamics of everyday life. And when it comes to international war, what we have found, and this goes for decades before I was born, that you can fight proxy wars and the nukes aren't going to get involved. As long as the proxy war is being fought, as long as one nuclear power isn't directly fighting another, we don't have to worry about nukes. But as soon as that bridge gets crossed, suddenly the end of the world is on the table. So I do think there is a significant difference between a proxy war between nuclear superpowers and a direct war. And I think that's a very important distinction.
What do you think, Weisiger?
Yeah, it's an important distinction. We don't want to send soldiers because we don't want to have headlines of soldiers dying in Ukraine, because that would make it all that much worse. That's why we do proxy wars, is essentially because of Vietnam. We're trying to avoid that all again, unless it feels like a very, 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 very winnable.
We've learned the other country fights the proxy war. We're not doing the proxy war. We're
unless it's like
the other side.
Unless it feels like a very easy victory, which there's no such thing. What's sort of terrifying is that we have now officially switched everything. We are no longer an ally to NATO or NATO countries. We are now an ally to Russia. And I had people in my comments who are Trump supporters saying, what's wrong with our president having a good relationship with our enemies? I'm like, oh, that's a slippery slope. Like, what's a good relationship mean? Good relationship? Do you mean just talking? We do that with any of our opponents. Or do you mean, like, would you expect I guess that happened with England. They went and met with Hitler and talked and sat at the table. That's actually why England was so poor at responding to the threat of Hitler, because they were too close to him. And when was it Churchill who didn't ever want to meet him or talk with him because he didn't want that sort of ability to be charmed by him or anything like that? Mm-hmm. And there's that danger of being too chummy with an enemy. And that's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened. Putin got chummy with Trump. Trump was charmed, and now just the guy likes me and praises me, therefore he's awesome. And I don't know how it's going to happen. I'm assuming they're going to try to tie some aid to Ukraine with holding an election, which will be rigged, that will elect someone who is going to allow to have further annexing. I don't know if it's the entire country or if it's going to be little bit by little bit. And we're just going to allow it to happen, which is going to put all this pressure on Poland and all the countries around them. What are they going to do? Because that just means Russia is now encroaching even more on all of these former Soviet countries that Putin wants back.
So that segues us quite nicely into today's news that I mentioned earlier, because one thing that I think is true, and it's hard to speculate about any of this, like you said, we can't really know. We are in unprecedented territory here. We've never had a president as a rogue actor calling shots completely unaligned with Europe and NATO and our other alliances. We don't know what's going to happen here. But the very important thing is that if Trump was fully in Putin's pocket, it would kind of already be over. It would just be over. And something that is going on at the same time as all of this is Trump is negotiating with Zelenskyy on mineral rights to the land of Ukraine. Have you guys been following that part of the story?
I saw Trump talk about it.
Really obsessed with minerals right now.
So, I mean, honestly, I will give credit where credit is due. Mineral rights to Ukraine is actually a really big fucking deal because of the potential value of the minerals in Ukraine that have still yet to be unearthed, especially looking forward into the future when we're talking green energy and being able to power ourselves in the future. A lot of the things that we used to develop, batteries and other parts of that electric infrastructure, there's a good chance there's going to be a lot of it in Ukraine. And so those mineral rights are an important strategic resource. So I don't necessarily disagree with trying to get them. But what Trump is clearly doing is he is strong-arming Ukraine, because there's a couple things you can say about Trump. He always wants to look like he's got the better end of the deal. So if he's sending all this money to Ukraine and not getting anything in return, he feels like a chump, and he doesn't like that. So he went to Zelenskyy. He sent his, I forget who exactly it was. It was a State Department representative to Zelenskyy, and basically gave Zelenskyy this agreement. Hey, you give us 50% of your revenue from all mineral ever sold from Ukraine in perpetuity forever. And Zelenskyy was like, well, I can't fucking do that. Not only because it would be illegal for me to just do so, you just gave me this. I need to review it with people. So Vance ends up going to him, and he says he with a revised offer, which is a little bit more favorable to Ukraine. And he's like, yeah, guys, I still can't do this. Parliament needs to get involved here. I can't do this unilaterally. And I shit you not. The thing that Vance said just completely floored me. And he said that that was news to us that Zelensky's team never told us before that meeting. It didn't seem like it was in good faith. They didn't know that Ukraine needed Parliament to sign off on that agreement. They did all of this. And they're like, yeah, we just didn't know that. And it seems like a sign of bad faith that you didn't tell us. And it's like, no, we expected the most powerful country on earth to just know that. And so this is an ongoing negotiation. And today it came out that there has been significant progress made. And it seems like, according to State Department intel, that there's going to be some sort of deal. And as you mentioned, Wiseacre, I don't know what's going on with the elections. I don't know what Putin wants. But it seems pretty clear to me at this point that Trump wants to cut some sort of middle of the line deal that makes him look good and makes him feel like he has gained something from over both parties.
Well, and the State Department will definitely frame it that way too. I mean, we have to remember that too, is he has nothing but yes men around him, and they're not going to paint this in any shape or form that will make it look like Donald Trump is bowing to Putin, even if he is.
Exactly. But the point is, if Trump's plan was to just bow to Putin, this is not what would be happening. He would just let Putin take over Ukraine.
Putin's smart enough to know, though, you don't do this right away.
Exactly. Putin. I have full faith and confidence in Vladimir Putin that he's playing Trump like a fucking tiny violin. Like, don't get me wrong. But the point here is the situation in my mind is not as dire as when this first news came out. And it's still an ongoing situation. But the thing I wanted to highlight here is the stupidity of Trump's reasoning of, hey, I need to get a better deal back from Ukraine. And in exchange for that, I'm going to blow up decades of U.S.-European diplomacy and strategic alliances.
80 years, yeah.
It's insane to me that anyone is like, yeah, better mineral rights negotiations is worth blowing up all of our friendships. It's like these people don't think that matters, that is actually what they think. So but it's not true. It doesn't make it true. TJ, what do you think?
Well, I was that's a lot going on there with Trump's. That's a decent explanation, I think, John, of like what Trump's plan might be here. I was actually kind of fixated on a comment that Kyle wrote over here about
I'm also interested, like the chat seems like it's like 10 minutes behind right now. Like they're still talking about
Kyle said, if U.S. troops are on the ground, then that allows within the laws of war for Russia to attack the USA. And Kyle, to that respond with, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like none whatsoever. I don't. Because now, to be fair, like I took law of war class every year in the Army, but that was on the soldier level. It wasn't on like the diplomatic level. So yeah, but why I say that is like, if a country declares war, there's no one stopping them. Like no one can stop you from declaring war unless you go to war with them. And like, who would they be afraid of? It's like, well, the laws of war with what are Geneva Conventions or whatever say we can't do this. Well, they're already antagonistic against the folks who would enforce that, which would be like in mainly Europe and the United States. So why would it matter? That, and also it's like, I know both you guys said this, and Kyle too, I genuinely do not see a difference between like, now I see a difference. I think you mentioned this, Wiseacre. I see a difference if I am like, let's say I'm president of the United States. I don't want to send my soldiers to die. That's going to cost me blood and treasure, and my popularity is going to drop. It doesn't go well. That makes perfect sense. Proxy war makes perfect sense. But as in, if I send weapons and money, this is why the Japanese declared, bombed us in Pearl Harbor, because we stopped doing our oil. We put an oil embargo on them, and that they lost all that oil. Now we need to attack the United States. This is how wars start all the time without actually direct. In fact, every war starts without direct, soldier to soldier.
Did it
conflict.
Vietnam? Did it in World War II?
Yeah,
did it with sending stuff back and forth to Europe? But we're not involved.
Yeah, that's World War I when the Germans sank the Lusitania. I mean, this happens. I don't know, but Also, I wrote down here, this is something Weizsäcker said like 15 minutes ago, but you mentioned how that, Putin wants to rig these elections and everything to get someone installed in Ukraine who's favorable to him. And I wrote down, you know what? Props to Russia for rigging all these elections. These folks, they have taken a page of the CIA, and I would be very proud of the work that they've done through all this. You gotta give credit where credit's due, because shaping the elections of other nations is just what you do as a major power.
Look what he's done in the United States.
Yeah. Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Successfully, I think he is almost nearly successfully dismantled what the United States is.
I think
he is on that trajectory. It's what he's wanted to do since the Berlin Wall, since all of it fell apart.
Would you put more on Musk or Putin? Because I put it more on Musk. Like, I think that
it's been Putin's desire, and he's used social media expert to that degree.
What do you think, John?
So I think that Putin, unlike some other actors, is very good at what he does. I don't think Trump is very good at what he does. I don't think Elon is very good at what he does in general. You can argue that he's very good at something. He's very good at.
He just has money.
That's
good, why he seems like he's good at what he does.
Putin's very good at the statecraft. Like, Putin is very good at the large scale, long term thinking that makes successful statecraft work. And so there's a part of me that is very worried that we already cooked. Like, he's already got it. At the same time, when he invaded Ukraine, he did not think it would last very long. Like, let's not fool ourselves. When he invaded Ukraine, the plan was to have that done in a couple weeks tops. And he did not plan for this years-long, prolonged war. So clearly, he's not batting 1,000 here. This is not,
it's a difference between a conflict and a op.
Yeah, we're dealing with a very intelligent actor, but we're not dealing with someone who has all of the power and all of the levers to pull.
No.
And so if you make a claim like he's infiltrated the U.S. government and has more leverage over us than Russia has ever had, I agree with that. If you're saying he has successfully dismantled us, you might be right, but I don't.
I would say we're on the trajectory.
That assertion.
We're on that trajectory because he has someone in power who's just doing whatever he wants because he's not a smart man.
Mm-hmm.
Trump is dumb, and then he is surrounded by more dumb.
Yeah,
and it's all people who do not know what they're doing, which is a great way to dismantle something, is to put a lot of dumb idiots in charge of it who want to get rid of it, who've been convinced they have to get rid of it because it's so corrupt. That is Putin's playbook, is to tell people in other countries that their country's government is corrupt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he tried to do in Ukraine, but then he went in with an army. I think he probably didn't have patience to see it through, but like, he peppers these little things, and then social media with the memes and old people who are terrified of technology. It's got to be true. I saw it on Facebook, and like, we're all just now. And then like the divide has really, I mean, it was boiling for a long time, but again, it feels like it's really been boiling pretty badly since the Berlin Wall fell.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh, so Kyle, I love you and everything. I know. I just want to read Kyle's response here. It said, wouldn't NATO troops be mobilized if Russia invaded and the USA, and it was deemed an act of aggression, versus if the USA invaded Russia, could attack the USA without activating NATO? But here's the thing. But then we'd be right back where we started. That, well, NATO can't attack Russia because then we'd have nuclear war and the world would end. I mean, then we're exactly where we began. That's what I'm saying. This makes no sense to me. It's a circle against this fucking Ouroboros that makes everyone says it, but I don't buy it. I don't think Russia wants nuclear war. That is my wild take on this, because who the fuck does? Nothing is worth the planet ending to these folks, right? Like, no one actually wants to eradicate all life on Earth tomorrow morning. Not like they don't care about global warming and shit like that, but yeah, they don't want a nuclear winter to kill them any more than we do. So yeah, I don't buy that reason. It doesn't make sense to me. But
it's all bargaining chips. That's why we have the nuclear weapons. It's the coming to the table.
Yes, I agree.
And that's the thing. Any war between the U.S. and Russia, neither side can win. Like just geographically,
war games.
It would be virtually impossible, no matter what other countries got involved, for one side to defeat another in an invasion or an armed conflict.
That's why War Games is still a really good movie.
Really excellent movie. But like it just can't happen. Like it would be, and even if it could in some eventuality and infinite possibilities happen, it's not something that you can go in planning for. Like you would never start the war because it can't end, and the only way it does end is either some sort of stalemate and agreement or nuclear annihilation.
Yeah.
And neither is ever as good as just fighting these problems.
You just have to hope that there isn't someone crazy like someone in North Korea or even Trump. Trump is I mean, if his mind is going, and I don't know, he could make really foolish decisions because he'll be like, well, we'll force them. If we bomb something, they'll be terrified of starting a war and we'll win. Like that. Like I could see him reasoning himself into it being the smart thing to do, but smart to him is
I can see that too. And I can only hope,
especially with someone like Pete Hegseth.
I can, as I said, I've said this before on the show, like I can only hope that if we get to that point, the people in the military who have to press the button refuse to do it. Like that's basically the only thing saving us. If that's
our hope for a lot of stuff right now, though, is that people in positions of power, like in the military, look at what they're asking. Like again, TJ, you were in the armed forces.
Yep.
What would you think about someone like a Pete Hegseth being in charge of you?
That's well, first, I would think it was funny. I hate to admit it, but I would think it's very funny that Pete Hegseth, I don't think Pete Hegseth even had a company command position like that. This guy, this fucking drunk 40-year-old is now the secretary. And whenever you get that title, in every military battalion, you have your chain of command pictures. You have the pictures of your NCO chain, your commanding officer chain, and then you have like the actual officials. You have the president, and then you have the Secretary of Defense, a big picture of him in every battalion. And in every battalion, there's a picture of, and it'll say on the bottom, the Honorable Pete Hegseth. And just thinking about that really made me laugh that some poor guy is going for a Soldier of the Year board. Is like, who's the Secretary of Defense? The Honorable Pete Hegseth, like all across the country. Yeah, so kind of dark, but that's how it is.
Wiseacre, I wanted to kind of jump off of what you said because it's going to segue us into our next segment about who's actually kind of destroying America, our villain of the week. But before we left the Russian topic, I wanted to address one more piece of this story, and it's something that an argument that Mark brought up here, and it's a very real argument going around that I want to address because I think it's important. And Mark says, I think Ukraine is going to have to accept a deal where they lose territory, and that's going to be hard to swallow. So it's easier if they blame the U.S. for forcing it down their throat. And here's my question about that line of thinking. Why did that change now? Because if it's always going to be inevitable, why should we not fight to the very last breath to protect a democratic country from an invasion from a dictator? Like that is, to me, if you're going to spend all this fucking money on our military, we should be using all of those resources to protect democracies from invasions against ideological dictatorships. I don't agree with everything that happened during the fucking Cold War, but like that was the status quo. That like everyone fucking understood that. And I don't know what happened to this country where suddenly it becomes even like feasible to say something as cowardly as, well, it's nothing we can do about it. They're just going to have to give up land to the bullies and the invaders. The dictatorship, they're just too strong for us to beat. Like, it's so cowardly. And that is what it is. It is cowardly. Like, you are looking weaker than Joe fucking Biden. It's not very easy to fucking do. But, like, he stood up strong, with NATO. It was like the one thing that he did pretty good during his presidency that I can give him his flowers for. He did a couple things, but like that's probably the biggest thing and the thing he cared most about too. But this argument that, hey, they're just going to have to give up land, like fucking why? Why do we have the largest, strongest military in the world if people just have to give up land when they get invaded? Like our fucking allies that we promised to protect. If my fucking buddy, if I told him I'd protect him and someone attacked him and I said, well, I guess you're just going to have to give up your fucking house to him. I'm not going to help you. It's fucking cowardly, especially when I have the ability to protect him. And have you guys had this? Because it has had a visceral reaction for me every time I hear that. And people say it with such like Yeah, nonchalance. Like, yeah, they're just gonna have to give up land. Like, what the fuck? When has that ever been the case?
Unless like this is like, I don't know. I don't have any proof of this. But it goes back to the thing I was talking about with the proxies, that the meeting between Trump and Putin without Ukraine is kind of what set this idea off for me and everything. That the United States sells out allies all the time, actually. I mean, when it's in our best interest, we absolutely will. And I don't think Ukraine's an exception. And like we were talking about, John, you were mentioning it with like the rare earth minerals. Like, what if this was the plan the entire time? Like, no matter who they're like, what if the plan was like, yeah, we know Russia doesn't like this encroachment by NATO countries, or like the flirting with putting Ukraine in NATO. They're upset about that. And Russia, once again, like not defending Putin at all, but looking at it from the Russian standpoint, I would be nervous too. It's like,
I disagree with that, TJ. Just
really?
Like, yeah, fuck. I would have no right to be nervous. Like, what fucking right would I have to be nervous? Like, again, no one's going to invade Russia. So what am I nervous about?
If Russians started building military bases, or they started funding like Mexico and Canada,
the U.S. would not put up with that. And
that's
my
what,
line
that's
is,
what I'm saying.
We should. My line is, it's bullshit.
Well,
the way that what's it called? The fucking I forget. I've said it a million times on this show. The fucking hemisphere thing. The
Monroe Doctrine. No,
the Monroe Doctrine.
No.
Bullshit. It's hypocritical bullshit that we should stop. And I would feel the same way if I were Russia.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, but I'm saying, like, looking at it from their perspective and like how these things generally go, that's pretty much what every nation would do. They would start freaking out. It's kind of like that. I don't know if you've seen that picture of Iran, and it shows how many military bases we have circled around the entire country of Iran. So look how aggressive Iran is toward our military. And so I get like that standpoint from Russia, but now that they have this Ukraine actually going on, the United States, okay, well, Ukraine's causing us all this problems anyway. If we could let this happen and then maybe squeeze a deal out, like, hey, we'll help. Once again, I have no idea if this was actually the whole plan to begin with, but the fact that this is happening does kind of raise alarm bells that, maybe the plan was to extract the stuff from Ukraine anyway to get a better deal.
Whose plan are you saying? It was Russia's plan or our plan?
No, the United States. Do you
think Biden thought that going into it? Like, hey,
I don't know. I mean, I don't. I really don't. I don't know because
this again. Let's not forget, Russia already has invaded Ukraine and took Crimea. It's not new. Like, why didn't it happen then? They were aggressive and started a conflict then, and they're doing it again because of the exact same thing that's happening now. It's just kind of like, I guess Russia just takes land now. I get like this kind of a shrug of what people are like. If they really want it, we don't want to go to conflict. They might as well just take it. And so now Russia's like, I guess no one's going to really come after us for doing what we did in Crimea. Let's keep going.
Yeah, and they're right.
I
think they're right, though.
Like to me, it's like the same argument of like, yeah, we should appease Hitler when he took Poland. Like that's exactly what's happening.
What England brought up,
we kind of appeased Russia when he took Crimea, and he just took more. All right. So maybe I was uncharacteristically inarticulate explaining this right here. What I was trying to say is that, yeah, this is true that Russia knows what, like we said at the beginning, well, they can't send troops that will cause nuclear war. If they know that, why wouldn't they keep doing this? And if we know, well, we're not going to send troops because it might cause nuclear war, well, let's just make the best deal out of this that we can. Like, I don't know
But to your point, also what I think John was saying, like, Russia is not showing a very good hand in this conflict. Like, they are not doing well.
They aren't. I know.
And if we really, which is what, I mean, I'm not like a pro-war, let's all fight, but if we really put our muscle behind it, just us, could you imagine what like, I'm not so sure, but like, Russia's having a hard time with Ukraine. If we went behind it with everything we had, it wouldn't be good. Let's say that right now. It would be mass destruction.
There's two ways.
But would it end it? Would it be like, this is done, knock it off, Russia? Like, like you have to stop a bully from bullying. Sometimes you got to punch him in the head. It's a horrible dilemma that Russia's forcing.
I agree with you, TJ, that the only reason that we're defending Ukraine is because it's strategically advantageous to the U.S. Like,
we do with
that's the only reason. And if it wasn't, we wouldn't be doing it.
I agree
in the first place. But to what Weisiger just said there, we are successfully defending Ukraine for a pittance. Like it's a large sum of money and stuff, but compared to the return on that investment is massive. Like, because Trump wants to do it strong arm style. Trump wants to be like, hey, if you don't give us this right now, we're going to let Russia eat you. And I would argue that was kind of like that was the deal, but we do actually have to defend Ukraine. Like, I don't think Ukraine was ever not going to give us something in exchange for
how statecraft for sure
works. But Donald Trump needs the headline. He needs it now.
He wants to be the mob boss. That's why everything he does is a terrible version of what a mob boss would do. Everything.
He would rather get his treasure with blood than without blood, even if it cost him treasure. Like, that's the way Trump operates. If he hurts you more, even if he gets less, that's a win for him.
True. Trump is very inartful in a lot of this stuff. That's true. Yeah, it's I can see that. Before the next topic, John, I wanted to bring this up here because it kind of goes into what we were discussing here about United States conflict and everything. So Weizsäcker, a year and a half ago, I was a guest on the show, and I remember doing an episode. John, I don't know if you were there or not, but it was Ron DeSantis, I think, and Ron DeSantis brought up that if he was elected president, he would go to war with Mexican drug cartels. I don't know if you were on the show for that episode, John, if you remember that or whatever. I had forgotten all about it until I saw this tweet by President Elon Musk today. And he wrote that, actually, that's maybe too small for you guys to read, but it says, breaking, the United States Department under President Trump has officially designated the following as foreign terrorist organizations: MS-13, United Cartels, Gulf Cartels, a bunch of drug cartels. And Elon responds, that means they're eligible for drone strikes. I saw this and I was like, oh, okay. All right. I can't believe I didn't think about this earlier or last year whenever we were talking about that you open up more terror strikes that allows you to pay more military contractors and, funnel more money into industries associated with those folks. Like, oh, yeah, okay, I see. That's what's coming now. Had you guys seen that?
I had not. Yeah, that's news to me, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It's unsurprising. Well, Trump's even said that to some degree, that we need to go into Mexico and invade and and take out these drug cartels. I'm like, cool. Is Mexico all right with that?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and like drone striking other nations too, like violating their sovereignty. It's something we casually do. But yeah,
the Republicans, they like to violate people's permissions.
We don't usually, TJ. We don't usually like drone strike people that can hit us back. Like we usually drone strike people who are so far away that they cannot hit us back.
Yeah, they're right on the
MS-13 can hit us back. Like they can. It's physically possible for them to do so. So I would be, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I'm against military action in Mexico. It might be a crazy fucking thought here, but
I wasn't even discussing MS-13. I was like the country of Mexico. I mean, it's I was like, if
the country of Mexico can't hit us back.
Well, I mean,
they're capable of it, but they're not.
They're more capable. They have more capable than MS-13. I mean,
but it's not even mutual. It's just unilaterally ensured destruction if they were to do so.
Unilaterally destruction,
and it's just going to create more. It's not. What do they think it's going to do?
I know.
They think it's going to solve the drug problem. Like drugs are going to stop happening.
No, but people will buy it though. They'll buy it though. Like it's just.
I'll just tell them 3 times.
I know. Like, the fact that we just do this for decades now, that we're going to fight our wars by. Not even fight the wars. Like, oh, there's someone we don't like, Anwar al-Awlaki or something. We'll send a drone to a different country and blow the shit out of somebody. Imagine if anyone did that to us. If anyone said, oh, look, this white nationalist group, that's bad news. And they sent a drone over to Nebraska and blew them up. We declare war the next day. But, we're in the United States. We do what we want.
That's our show, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. If you are watching this video, then I hope you are subscribed to this channel. And if you are not, then guillotine for you. If you do enjoy this show, please, Weizsäcker, where can people find you if they liked what you had to say today?
I'm on TikTok. Who knows what account it will be for but my main account is Weizsäcker Design 2. I'm also on YouTube, which I'm trying to build an audience there as well. I'm Weizsäcker Design over there. And I'm on Blue Sky as at Weizsäcker.me.
Thanks so much, Wiseacre. Be sure to check out his stuff, folks. And also be sure to visit Scott's Burgers in Bixby, Oklahoma, where you can see their patented guillotine pickle slicer. Come see it, folks. We appreciate it. Catch you later.